Hello and welcome to the Southbound Sports Show. I'm your host, Richie Leahy, here with my co-host, Maddie B. I've been slammed getting sick this past week, so if my voice is going out, that's why. I'm going to try to fight through it, though, because we have a big win, or a big week. Let's start by congratulating you, Matt, on a big win, and pretty much you locked up playoffs, right?
Yes, we did.
Congratulations. Why don't you let us know how it
went? It actually, like, for one of the few times this season, we played a complete game. Offense, defense, special teams. And we had a tough matchup, played out of conference because of the merger between Williamsburg and Juniata Valley. So we traveled down to Somerset County and went up against North Star. It was their homecoming, which kind of created its own challenges because it was like a block and a half walk or 2-block walk from the school to the stadium. And so, like, normally our kids have the game ends and they end up like taking a while to get pictures with family and different stuff. And we said during pregame, like, guys, we got to get on the bus or like get back to the school together. Like, if you're getting pictures, get them done immediately because I thought that's all I need.
You have to like walk along the road? Or there's a path, or what?
No, like you walk like on the road through town.
Really? Why? To get to the school?
From the school to the stadium. Yeah.
They don't have like any on-site, even under the bleachers type thing? I don't think I've ever seen that.
No, like it's like a separate, it's away. And it just, the more I was looking, was like, all it takes is for one of these kids to not be paying attention and like go left instead of right, and they're like lost in Boswell with obviously without their phone because they're in their like game clothes, like they have no idea to communicate with anyone. So I was like, and we're gonna get back together.
Yeah, that's crazy.
So we ended up returning a punt for a touchdown. We rushed for over 200 and it was up over 250 for the first time since I've been head coach at Claysburg, which triggers for our offensive linemen an opportunity to have a big cheese pizza party.
I thought you were going to say triggers for Urban Meyer. Did you see his comment?
No.
The NFL posse was going after him hard. Like, I don't understand how people can read their comments and like take anything seriously because they're obviously getting marching orders just because of how many articles I saw on it. So they asked Urban Meyer like his comments on the game that they lost, and he said something like, I really like how the offense is going. We're really balanced. It's always my goal to have 250 yards rushing and 250 yards receiving, which to me is just like a nonchalant, like, okay, he wants a big offensive game, even run, even pass. And so like all the NFL writers were writing these hit pieces saying like, only one team or like a handful of teams have ever even rushed for 250 yards, so this is ridiculous, and he doesn't belong in the NFL. I'm like, I don't think he was literal about it. I mean, I'm sure that's like a lofty goal. Like, that would be like an ass kicking if he was able to put that down. Maybe he should have said 150, 150, or 200, 200.
He must have forgot he didn't have Rutgers on the schedule.
That's what they said. Did you read them?
No, I didn't read anything.
Oh my gosh, you could write for the NFL, dude. You should put your resume in. I saw that comment at least 3 different writers. He thought that they had Rutgers on the schedule. Which would have slam against Rutgers. How rude of them. Like, you're telling me that there are no teams in the NFL that are hot garbage every year? Lions? Jets? Like, they pretend like all the NFL's so cutthroat. Any team can win on every week. No. That's completely false. Just look at the draft results. How many teams have been in the top 10 every year? It's ridiculous, including the Jaguars recently. People are still talking about how they went to the AFC Championship like Mark Brunell 20 years ago. And they're like, see, they can have success. I'm like, I don't know.
David Gerard.
Well, they had Blake Bortles. They beat the Steelers a couple years ago. But still, for the most part, was it him instead of Mark Brunell? I thought they had Mark Brunell.
Well, Mark Brunell had him there, but that was like, that was a long time ago.
That's what people are writing about, Matt. And when they write these Urban Meyer hit pieces, which I must have clicked on too many because now my entire recommended news feed in my house is like Urban Meyer stuff. It's like, look at this unreleased video of Urban Meyer, and it's like from 2 weeks ago. I'm like, I already saw that one. Show me something new if you're going to be sending me these ads. Come on. I'm going to increase their bounce rate, but I don't know why you reminded me of that with your comment. So you guys got pizza?
Well, I'm going to be getting pizza for the offensive line.
Isn't that some type of bribe? I think you have to declare that to the NIL.
Well, I had originally thought, like, I am utilizing a rushing offense. Like, we're going to easily get this. No, we're not. 4 years later, we finally rushed for over 250 yards. I didn't realize how much more challenging it is at high school to do that.
So wait, how many offensive yards do you normally have in a game?
I mean, it fluctuates. We've had pretty good balance over the years where we've kind of had more passing yards typically than rushing.
Really, in a game?
Oh yeah.
I figured high school would be like 200 yards rushing to 100 yards passing, if that, maybe 50 yards passing. More of like a Georgia Tech stat line.
No, in most cases, I would absolutely agree with you. But we had so many games that like you would have longer pass plays that you'd get to like 2 yards, 70-yard pass.
Yeah, plus you left me a low-hanging fruit. I guess if you're playing from behind, you obviously pass a lot.
Oh, hey, we are consistently making the playoffs. We're back in it.
I know. I was going to say, wait, you did miss once?
We missed last year, but
that was a weird
COVID.
year. Yeah, forget about that year. That's why one of my topics I have on here was like the Big Ten. They have so many top 10 teams, and people are trying to discredit them. Like, it's coming off a COVID year. People didn't know. I'm like, what does that mean? If anything, last year would have been the year to be like, all right, asterisks, throw that year out. Not the year that is back to normal. Like, give me a break. So
well, and I was joking around because I don't know how the rest of the season's going to play out, but we were able to fit in 2 JV games. We had one last week, and it was a 14-14 tie, and this week we pulled out the victory. It was 14-12 maybe, I think. So we won both of we won one and tied one for our JV team this year. So I was pretty proud of them as well, to just continue building on what we've been working towards.
Very cool. That reminds me of some of my notes here for our first big topic, so we might as well get into it. Your boy, John Gruden, out as head coach of the Las Vegas Raiders. And I would say that like 2 weeks ago it would have been a shock, but whenever the news broke that his emails had leaked, was it last week? I'm surprised that they let him coach. It was pretty clear that he lost the locker room. And I don't know how he just basically had that opportunity. I mean, it's been speculated. I mean, he's obviously very close with the Raiders organization. So they were trying to get around it. I watched a lot of ESPN and NFL coverage since it happened. It was like last night. Because at first, everyone reported that he was fired, like immediately, whenever the New York Times released the rest of his emails. But I do want to say, those were private emails. So someone, basically like a whistleblower, had all of his emails and sent them out. So, like, it was basically a hit on him. And to be honest, I'm surprised it took that long. They had to have been sitting on him. I don't think that these companies have a guy that's reading private emails from 10 years ago, right?
I would think not.
So I wonder how long they had it and why they released it now.
Unless they were uncovered when they were reviewing the thousands of emails from the Washington football team, when they were going through Dan Snyder's allegations.
Well, that is where they were connected to. So it was it Bruce Allen? Like the old Raiders Redskins GM, wasn't it?
Okay. Yeah.
So I think that you're probably right, which is kind of weird because, like, where are the rest of the emails then? Because I think the NFLPA, the last I saw before we went live here, is that they want the NFL to release all of the emails. I don't think that they mean just Gruden. I think that they're talking about the Dan Snyder ones too, because it was like, what, a couple years ago we had that story on the show where he was aggressively trying to basically send out cheerleaders to events. And that is what the investigation's on, correct?
Yeah.
I think so. So it was like the way he treated his cheerleaders. So if they found the John Gruden stuff through that, maybe that's how, because I guess they would have the email sent to them. Because I thought John Gruden had used an ESPN email, because all last night they kept talking about how he was on ESPN and how ironic it was that the news broke on Monday Night Football, the show he used to do. And so I don't think ESPN would have released the emails. So you're probably right that the NFL was reviewing the Redskins stuff. John Gruden's emails were found, and they were like, well, this is ridiculous. So let's just leak him out there. And I hope that they're not using it as a scapegoat to get around the other stuff. So I'm hoping the NFLPA actually gets more emails out. They had said, I didn't even see all his emails. I tried to find them. He had some negative ones about Michael Sam and Goodell and how they pushed him to get drafted. That was his opinion. That's not my opinion. So that was the one I think pretty much broke his career, because he has Carl Nassib, right? How you say his last name?
Yeah.
The first openly gay player. So to be trashing gays in your email, it just, I don't think there was any coming back from that. That's why I think he lost the locker room immediately. And then the racist stuff too. Randy Moss was really upset. I watched that video a couple times. And so I can only imagine how tough it would have been in the locker room for him.
Yeah.
There are rumors that like ESPN's still interested in hiring him back, which to me would be crazy at this point, right?
I don't know. I mean, the owner of the Jags said that he thought John Gruden should step down with his own coach, like having his own issues.
Well,
he's like, that's separate.
That's what I'm saying. We don't know what were in the rest of the emails. John Gruden himself had said that he personally knows that he trashed at least 5 or 6 NFL owners in those emails as well. And then during the game last night, Gruden said that last week. So I read that as like Friday or Saturday. That was like in his apology. He's like, yeah, I trashed owners in those emails too. And then immediately they were like, we're going to release the rest of the emails. So I almost was like, was he stringing them along? Like, was he encouraging them to release the rest? I don't know. Because that's what I was thinking. Like, that's a bad move, bro, to even alert them to look at the rest of the emails if you know they're bad. And then on the game last night, they were like, yeah, 2 owners reached out to Adam Schefter, which, to be honest, if you're an NFL insider, you're getting the news directly from the team. Like, I think everyone knows it at this point. There's no such thing as, like, insiders that are just, like, they know. Like, their source is basically the league. So, he said at least 2 owners were upset and wanted him fired. I bet they were the ones that got trashed, because they have all the emails. The NFL is not like a big corporation. You have a couple billionaire owners. Those are the guys calling the shots. So, like, if you're trashing a handful of them, guess what? You're gone. And then for ESPN to hire him back, potentially, I'd be like, oh my gosh.
Well, maybe I'm mistaken, but I remember part of his deal was that when he got hired with the Raiders, like, the contract was really big, but it was also
ownership.
Like, it was tied into like partial ownership of the team. So it's like you could resign as the coach and still just kind of hang out at the stadium, collect royalties, like do all of the owner type stuff. Like,
well, that's why it seems weird. Like, they made the statement last night about the special teams coach taking over because he was familiar with most of the players and separated enough from John Gruden. But then I was like, well, if you think he's like too close to the other guys, are you letting them go too? Or are you just promoting the special teams guy and that's your excuse? Like, well, let's not get too crazy and clean house here. Because our team was looking pretty good until they started to fall apart these last couple weeks. But that's why I brought up the part where they reported that he was fired. If he's fired, I'm pretty sure he is guaranteed or he's owed $60 million. Mike Leach is still waiting for his money. So he might not get it. But I'm sure that this would be enough for cause, because that's why during the game on Sunday when they were playing, they reported that the NFL was looking to see if they could fire him with cause or whatever, so that they wouldn't have to pay him that buyout. I'm assuming that the meeting that they had, he was basically said, like, yeah, we're going to have to file this in court. Do you want to go through that? John Gruden basically said no. And then they worked out a side deal. Like you said, I think the ownership would have had to have been in that. I mean, he's obviously going to sign an NDA. Like, let's be honest here. This is all speculation, but you just don't turn down $60 million and leave. You know, especially now, because like there's a chance where you could never be hired again.
Well, and in the middle of the season yet to boot. Like, it's not like it's the off season and nothing's going on.
Yeah, and the Raiders were looking good until the past 2 weeks, so I don't know. It's just crazy. And I mean, I definitely agree with him being gone. Like I said, I thought he was gone immediately. I'm surprised they let him coach. I was worried that they were going to try to do some like weird bullshit where they just have him step down, or like he's like suspended for 3 games and then he like miraculously comes back to coach against the Chiefs. It's like, hey, guess who's back? Gruden's back. But I mean, if you lose the locker room, the owner knows the team. He probably talked to the players, and so they were like, yeah, we're not playing for this guy. And he spent, was this 4th year? He put the team together where it looks like they could make a run. I don't know if they are talented enough to make it to the Super Bowl, but you never know. You catch a couple breaks. The Chiefs haven't looked like world beaters this year. I mean, they're getting desperate. They're signing Josh Gordon, so I don't know what else, but
yeah,
I wouldn't have had him as my first coach gone.
Well, and the surprising thing is that not only did he step out of Vegas, but then Tampa came back and took him back out of the Ring of Honor.
Wait, they did that already?
Yes.
I was gonna tweet that, because I know we get a lot of Gruden heat on our Twitter for the show by some of our fans. So
like that's where all of the Raider talk started with.
I know you talked about it on the show, and then people started tweeting at you, and then I loved it.
It's like, well, now we're back at nothing.
Yeah,
we're back to where we started from. He's not in.
Yeah,
and Tony Dungy isn't in.
He's out. So Matt, you don't have to talk about the Raiders anymore. You can go back to talking about the Falcons and how you love all their guys in fantasy.
Well, I'll
redo the schedule. I'll make sure I add some Falcons tidbits on here. We haven't talked about them for a while.
Hey, well, we finally have something to talk about this week.
Yeah, I don't even like. You're going to go through this, and I want to see everything, because obviously it wasn't just Gruden. So like, you can't tell me that they're looking into the owners, but they're like, hey, guess what? We only found stuff on John Gruden. Like,
nothing to see here.
That's a pretty big shock to me. And so that's where I'm like, I want to see the rest. And if Gruden's gone, then where are the rest of these emails? The point of the entire investigation, and why aren't they gone? Like, remember the Donald Sterling, how they had like that recording that might have been illegal recording where he didn't know. Then they said he did know, and it was kind of like a setup to get him to sell the Clippers. And then they were like, well, maybe he made out on that deal because he made like billions of dollars on them. Like, are they going to force Dan Snyder to sell the team? Like, I want some real action to come if there's more emails. I think the other guy, I forget his name. I'm pretty sure I was right whenever I said it earlier. is it Allen or something? So
Yeah.
I think he's already out of the league. But I could be wrong. But now I want the NFLPA to keep pushing it. Like Gruden was directly attacking them. And their rep at the time, I don't know if he's still the rep, Smith. Is it Smith?
Yeah.
So I want them to come back and be like, hey, obviously coaches and owners and even whatever GMs are talking about this stuff. We want all the emails. We want them now. And then we can see where the pressure's applied. Because you can't show like 300 commercials about, what was the one yesterday? It was like, hey, Gruden just got fired for saying all this hateful stuff. And then they had a commercial that it was like, NFL is love and all this other stuff. And then it was like, NFL is for everybody or something like that. And I thought, obviously not. If you have coaches and owners and GMs emailing about this, that was 10 years ago. You're just finding it now? And then you expect me to believe it was just one guy when everyone else was kind of just quiet. I saw a couple of people like tweeting out like how many owners and like other coaches and stuff are calling like IT teams right now to wipe their phones. Because remember, we talk about Urban. Remember his scandal? His phone miraculously got wiped. Right? Like people forget that was a real thing. Remember?
Yes, I remember.
So like you're telling me
75,000 scandals.
Yeah, you're telling me that these guys don't have cleaners or whatever that are going to get rid of their stuff. I want to know who else is in the league that agrees with John Gruden that should also be fired. Right?
I agree.
Like there's some of these good old boys that have been there forever. And it's like, why do you keep getting a job? Like you're pulling stuff over Eric Bieniemy. Like, oh yeah, you had that incident, remember? But then like, all right, now we know why he's not getting hired. That's why I think he should take the USC job. I think USC should push for him. Because even if Urban Meyer leaves, I know you wanted to talk about it. We can get back into it later in the show. But I don't think they did a poll. Did you see the poll on Urban Meyer?
No, I am not obsessed with Urban Meyer.
Yeah, you are. You sent me more Urban Meyer texts than I've ever sent. Even going back to the Ohio State days. And I'm waking up and I'm getting like 5 new Urban Meyer things in the morning, and I was like, talk about obsessed.
All you've done is just how your news feed is all Urban Meyer stuff.
Yeah, because the phone listens. They're like, hey, he keeps getting texts from his buddies about Urban Meyer. He must really love him. It's really starting to mess up my feeds too, because now I'm getting Ryan Day stuff. I'm like, definitely don't care about that. So now you made me lose my train of thought. He was what was I talking about? Something with
You're
Urban
talking
Meyer.
about Urban Meyer.
I know.
All of his scandals.
I know. I'll just let it go. I don't even know. I was talking about USC job. They did a poll of like group of 5 coaches or GMs or owners. Or what? They're not even owners. What are the presidents? Athletic directors, maybe. And then they did one of Power 5. Only like 15% of Power 5 athletic directors said that they would hire Urban Meyer. And then like the group of 5, like the lower conferences, it was like 30%. And I was like, no way. If those schools that are trying to get in the playoffs had an opportunity to get Urban Meyer, it'd be like 99%. There's only a couple of them, maybe 90. Like which ones do they consider that wouldn't probably hire him? Maybe like
the
Notre
Naval
Dame,
Academy,
BYU,
the Air Force Academy.
Yeah, that's it. The academies, the couple of the private schools. Well, I guess BYU.
Baylor would probably hire him right away.
Well, they're Power 5. They're probably one of the ones.
Like, yeah, we don't care.
They're winning anyway. Baylor's unbelievable. But let's keep with the NFL stuff. We'll get into college here in a little bit. My other big topic, unless you have anything else on Gruden.
No.
I don't know what else to say about it. I mean, obviously, he admitted to the emails. They're bad. Shouldn't even have coached on Sunday. Gone. That's our official stance. Well, that's at least my official stance. I just want to see the rest now. I don't think it was an isolated case. And if you're going to promote the league and you want to clean it up, then clean it up. Don't do these investigations for what? It's been like 3 years that investigation's going on.
Yeah.
and instead you're trying to just like deflect with this Gruden story. Give me a break. NFL or the Steelers stuff. JuJu hurt his shoulder. They beat the Broncos. You might be right on the Broncos of not being good. But I don't know if the Steelers are good either. Like, Ben is going to try to get them there, and he's obviously hurting. And now JuJu hurt his shoulder. They're expected to put him on IR. He's supposed to be out for the entire season, whether he needs surgery or not. So remember, he was a free agent. He supposedly had more money on a deal, which I didn't think was a thing. I think that was just him saving face. Now, What do you think happens? Do you think they bring him back, or do you think he has offers elsewhere? Because he's not going to get that much money. His stats weren't that good this year. So
I think it just depends on how much he would settle with and who he would settle for. Like, I think an ideal situation for him would be to go to like Arizona. And I know
Arizona has like 5 dudes. I was looking at their fantasy team. They're like running 5 or 6 deep a wide receiver. They would not even need him or want him. Did you know they have Crabtree on the roster?
Yes. You laughed when I said about how they were going to be a contending team, and
because I don't trust Kingsbury. I still don't.
But I think in a place like that, it almost makes sense because you're not. I think when you bring him in, you're not bringing him in as a number 1 receiver, or I'll be honest, even a number 2. Like when you have strong receivers on the outside, and you can allow him to run the crossing routes and run the intermediate, like run the middle of the field game. I think that was where he was really strong, and when he really made his mark was when they had the outside receivers, and he could, when they had Antonio Brown out there as the true vertical threat and allowed him to play underneath. Like that was more tailored for his style. That I think you're not going to command top dollar that he wants, but that's the role that I think he fits.
Well, that's what Antonio Brown's been doing with the Buccaneers. And he's been lighting it up every couple weeks. He's just kind of like the forgotten slot man behind Godwin and Mike Evans.
Yeah.
They're like, hey, there goes Antonio Brown. Oh, yeah, he's still here. Best friends with Tom Brady. He broke that record at Marvin Harrison, like fastest, was it 600 catches or something like that? So he's like one of the best receivers of all time. Just like not even having a team, having his own off the field stuff where he didn't even really play that much. So I don't know how they calculated that. Fastest by games, by age? Because he was away for a bit.
I think with some of those stats, they're just making them up. No one's going to fact check them.
Hey, that's true. No one is going to fact check them.
Like, he cryo froze his feet.
Matt,
it was with the Raiders.
Because I know I forget to bring this up, but it's kind of like I text you about the Michigan promo. They kept saying, ESPN, they were like, the first time Michigan's been 5-0 since Brady Hoke was coach in 2011. And I was like, are you like, I know I'm not mishearing this ad or whatever this promo they're doing, but Michigan was 5-0. They were like 9-0 in 2016 when they lost to Florida State in the Orange Bowl. Like Wilton Spate got hurt at Iowa. And I'm like, how would ESPN not fact check that?
I like that you choked on your words as you said lost to Florida State.
Well, I brought that up. I wanted you to feel good because I know how Florida State's really been struggling this year.
Hey, we're back in the winning column. This is a great week.
But what did I text you? That was like Thursday or Friday. So then they changed the promo because I'm glad you reminded me of this somehow. I forget what we were even talking about. They changed it then to Michigan is 5-0 for the second time since 2011 with Brady Hoke. Like they didn't even change the rest of the script. They're like, just change it to where it says first time and change that to second. And then like they completely forgot. I think they were just trying to make it seem like Harbaugh hasn't been 5-0 because they probably knew that would probably get viewers, right? I don't know.
Or they just wanted to just troll Michigan fans and they were all calling ESPN like, you're wrong. You're wrong. It's not the case.
Well, if probably Harbaugh himself, he's probably like, they're like, we know how to get him back to the NFL. Let's just make fun of him some more. But that we're talking about stats in the NFL, how they make them up. But you're probably right, because if you watch the game, all they do is throw out these weird stats. It's like, okay, just tell me, why is my fantasy guy not getting any targets here? Why is my guy getting hurt again? How many guys am I going to have on the IR this year? is Christian McCaffrey going to play? Because ESPN quit yanking my chain by saying, hey, you have a guy that's projected to score more points in your lineup, Christian McCaffrey, and then he's not even playing. Like, are you trying to get me to lose? Because I'm back on the winning side. I went back to my man Matt Ryan at QB. Didn't really make a difference. I think Baker ended up scoring one more point this week anyway. But the reason I wanted to bring that up is I had the Colts defense, and they were outstanding until they got completely ripped off on a lateral. Did you see that play last night?
No.
So everyone's talking about how the Ravens had this miraculous comeback. And it was bullshit because Lamar Jackson fumbled. The Colts picked it up, ran down the sideline after a lateral, and they got a touchdown. They reviewed it to make sure that Lamar Jackson didn't, like, he fumbled, which it was very close, but he did, so, like, they couldn't overturn it. And they wanted it to be a close game because Monday night probably. So they decided to say that he lateraled the ball forward. Whoever was calling the game, they showed the replay. They showed it one time, and he said to the rules expert guy, he said, you sure that he lateraled that forward? It looked like it went backwards first and hit his helmet and then went forward and he caught it. And the guy's like, it might have looked like that, but he definitely lateraled it forward. And I'm like, no, he clearly lateraled it backwards, hit the guy in the face mask, and he caught it. Like, the guy almost fumbled it. Because he pitched it back a yard, like right to the guy. Because obviously, you're running down, trying to block. You're not expecting a lateral. You're like, you're ready to just run down the sideline and celebrate with your buddy, right? So like, the fact that they didn't even show the replay again is like such a slap in the face that I'm just expecting. Like, I saw it once, looked like it was backwards. I don't even know. I don't understand. If they would have had another angle that proved that it was forward, I think they would have showed it during the broadcast. Instead, they cut that guy off, and I'm sure someone was in his ear saying, change the subject. Change the subject. You're going to ruin this game here. And so Colts got ripped off, and then, of course, they went from having like a stout defense. That broke the game open, and the Ravens were able to come back. And I'm wondering, like, what's up with the Ravens this year? Like, they seem to like be always behind, and then they're able to turn it on. And I don't have any expectations for them in the playoffs. I just don't.
Well, why would you? Because there's a Bills Mafia.
Yeah. Well, I told you, I thought the Bills were good this year, and they were my team, remember?
And my opponent had Josh Allen as a quarterback. So... Hey, when your opponent puts up 170 points, it's tough to get a win.
If only people would have let me get him, my team would have been unstoppable, even with Christian McCaffrey getting injured. I'm going to say that. Because my wide receivers I end up getting, like Thielen, they're not even trying to throw the ball every couple weeks. Some weeks they're just not throwing to, and I'm like, who are you throwing to on the Vikings? You guys are awful. Like, you have
apparently they're throwing to Dalvin Cook. They're just throwing checkdowns.
And I was like, are you kidding me? Because I also got their tight end, Conklin, which I did try to draft, and someone outbid me for him. And then they're like, we're dropping this fool. And then he's been actually doing pretty good, so I was able to pick him up for $1. I'm like, in your face. I'll take him back. I let go of the Chiefs Hardman. Because, and I don't know if anyone was going to pick him up. He's been like kind of good. He's like average. But with Josh Gordon, there's no way he's going to get looks. He was barely getting looks. He like had a decent game every like 3 weeks. And then, of course, the Lions guy picked up Cephas that was getting looks. Injured. Great.
Well, Hawkinson started off really good for the Lions. And then they're like, oh, yeah, he's not getting the touches because the Lions stink so bad they have to use him for pass protection. Like, son of a bitch.
Yeah, that's good. That's good because, well, I guess not anymore. So the Lions, if your guy gets hurt, I'm assuming he's out for the year. That's my luck. McCaffrey will be like back and forth. I think tight end is the one position where it's hard to get points now. I think whoever has Kelsey in the league is at such an advantage that the rest of the guys are just kind of fill-in tight ends. And maybe I'll have to look at the points to see how true that statement is. There might be 2 or 3 guys but I think that position is more valuable than what people usually talk about. That's my fantasy tip.
You must listen to our podcast.
Who, me?
Yes.
Why? Because you talk about tight ends?
I've said for years that if you take advantage of tight ends, you're a smart player.
Yeah, but you don't need 2 tight ends. You just need one good one. Don't ever play 2 tight ends. I see some teams have like 2 or 3. I'm like, all right, easy week. Unless they get lucky somehow. The one guy I dropped from the Bengals, of course, he's getting like no looks. And then the one week he had so many points, he was like vaulted him into like the top 15 tight ends. I'm like, oh, of course. But I was like, I'm never going to play him anyway. So he would have had that week sitting on my bench because you can't trust a guy that gets no looks. Any other fantasy tips you have this week? Because I think some people like it. I get some comments on it. So,
I thought that Trey Lance was going to have a bigger impact going with the Niners.
They must not have liked his game. Did you see the comments? They're gonna go back to Garoppolo. They were like, yeah, it wasn't even Trey Lance didn't even have a chance during the starting job. So I'm like what a great confidence boost. Like, hey, good game, but no, not even close.
Go get your clipboard.
Yeah, it's just like inside the wall. Oh, there goes my thing blowing up. I was trying to find that lateral play to see if they had a good view of it here on the Twitter. I say he's falling down. He's on like because I need to describe this, of course. He pitches it back. He's on the 25, and the guy catches it like on the 20, like right before the 25. But the camera's also at an angle. It's not straight down the sideline because they never implemented my idea of having a camera that's just straight down the sideline. They're only using the side one. So I don't think they had a good view of it. And I think if you look at where he throws it and where he catches it, it's clearly backwards. Because it hits him, so he lets go, and it just hits him, like I said, in the face mask, like they said on the broadcast. And it was only like they were so close to each other, it was almost like a handoff anyway, Matt. So
no.
I still think it was bullshit. And that's basically what turned the game around. Because if they score, it's over. I don't think they scored on that drive. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they did score. I can't remember. I was just bitter I lost the fantasy points, if I'm being honest. Anything else you have for the NFL?
No.
All right, let's get into college. I had some big news. I don't know if I mentioned it earlier, but the Big Ten has half of the top 10 in both the coaches and the AP poll. And it's the first time, I think, ever. So all those years of the SEC being like the best never happened, Matt. Never happened. And I want to say, like, it very easily could not have happened because Nebraska almost beat Michigan State and Michigan. The Michigan State one went to overtime. And then Penn State barely lost to Iowa, which it looked like they were going to blow them out at the beginning. And then Iowa kept getting turnovers. I don't know how Iowa gets so many turnovers. They just play like a base vanilla zone defense, right? They must mix up so many coverages that they have, like, they showed that stat during the game. I don't know if you watched it. And I know some Penn State fans listen to this show, so they probably hate that I'm talking about this. But they have, like, the most turnovers of, like, any team. And, like, the second or third, it was, like, Alabama and App State maybe or someone. So it's like, oh, teams that are winning get turnovers. So Iowa's right there. If they just had some creative offensive play, that they could easily be a better team. But the most insulting thing is when they took 3 knees or whatever. Did you see the end of the game?
Yeah.
So they take knees and they're like, we're just going to punt it. If we know your quarterback is doing nothing. So, and it can't be a confidence boost. James Franklin, he was salty after the game. And even Kirk Ferentz was throwing shade. He was saying that Penn State, someone wrote an article about Iowa fans being jerks because they were booing Penn State fans that were hurt. And Ferentz called him out and said, yeah, they're smart fans. They must know that they're faking some of those injuries. It's like, oh, very true. Because that's something that, I mean, 5 years ago, the faking the injuries, that was a big topic. And guess what? It hasn't stopped. They just quit talking about it. It's almost like, oh yeah, we know they're slowing down these offenses with fake injuries. We're just going to quit talking about it. And I'm surprised that they didn't make a mandatory, you cramp up, because that's what they always say. And it's like not even like a fake injury. They're like, oh yeah, he's cramping before anything even happens. So the guy in the booth watched the guy fake fall. And then I did see it. Well, I don't think it was the Penn State Iowa game. Maybe it was. But I think it was a different game where the guy was holding his knee. The trainer ran out, checked his chest, and then ran off. And the guy just like jumped back up, and they're like, "Yep, mixed signals there." Like, oh, I thought it was a leg injury. No, we're gonna check your chest here, buddy. Get up, get up. But I honestly think, and I don't know how this would work, because like, how many fake injuries can you have? But I think the only way to get around it is if you get injured, for the safety of the player, they have to miss the rest of that series. Like if you're on defense, you can't go back in. And I think that then only, and I don't want to see where you have like players that are getting injured. Like, but honestly, if you are getting seriously injured, you shouldn't be going back in anyway. Right?
I just want to play.
Like, because I think that was one of the excuses was like, well, we might be putting ourselves out. It might be liable if someone get injured because a player is going to play through an injury because he doesn't want to get off the field. But I think that's on the coaches. Like, a player that's not injured is going to be a better asset for your team than a guy that's injured. Like 100% of the time. So, I don't know. That's where that game brought me back. It was like a throwback game of like turnovers, poor offense. And then Georgia plays.
Just a typical Iowa football game.
And then like that Georgia-Clemson game, they're like, oh, so awesome. That was such a great defense. Georgia has like one of the best defenses of all time. The Big Ten does. It's like, well, that's just embarrassing. Like, what happened there? Because that's what cracked me up about the Nebraska. So I saw a couple of people write that, oh, Michigan's not for real. They barely beat Nebraska. But here I'm going to make my new playoff ranking. Oklahoma's number 3. Oklahoma barely beat Nebraska at home. So what are you talking about? Either Nebraska might be decent, and they just really screwed their first game of the season against Illinois. Because if Nebraska beats Illinois, because I know I always compare your record to Scott Frost. What's your record this year?
We're inching back to 500.
Well, so is Scott Frost. He's 3-4. Is that your record?
Yes.
Oh my gosh, I knew it. You guys are 2 peas in a pod. He's out there. So the only bad loss he has this year, because I was thinking after the game, like he just looked crushed. He looked crushed against. So people that might not know, it was like 3 weeks ago they played Oklahoma. Oklahoma had was it that one-handed interception down by the goal line that pretty much sealed the game, I think.
Yeah.
And it was at Oklahoma. So he was on the road. Then he goes to Michigan State. They're winning with like a couple minutes left. They punt the ball. Michigan State returns the punt for a touchdown to take it to overtime. And then they lose by a field goal. So Nebraska hasn't been playing like slop. And then, of course, they came back against Michigan. It was tie game. And their quarterback's running. They ran a like quarterback draw or whatever. On a third down to get the first down, and he stripped it. And then Michigan just sat and waited. Like basically Harbaugh went super conservative and kicked the field goal to win it. Kind of like what Iowa did, where they're like, hey, we're going to kick the ball because we don't really think your offense is that good. That's kind of what Harbaugh did. And he's like, yeah, we just took the ball right out of your quarterback's hands. And then, because I was surprised about it, because like the Big Ten, the officiating is so bad at this point. It's almost like I feel bad bringing it up because that's your premier game. Like I know you had Iowa and Penn State on, but like this game's on national television, and you're having both Harbaugh and Scott Frost have to tell you guys like what to review because there was a play, I forget, did I text it to you? I remember the Nebraska one. So Michigan handed the ball off near the goal line. The quarterback tripped and gave it to the running back. His knee was down before he handed it off. They called it a touchdown on the field. Scott Frost was like, hey, I want you to review that. And the guy's like, review what? He was clearly in the end zone. He's like, no, the quarterback was down. And they're like, what? And you can like read lips. So he points up to the board. It's like, look, they're showing it on the big board right now. He's down before he hands it off. So then they like do like a little conference only to review it. And I was thinking, how much time are we wasting here when they know he's down? Obviously, Scott Frost just showed him on the big board. I don't know why he has to go to the booth, right? That's why I want the sky judge.
You can't just look up and judge it.
The sky judge that the NFL's been doing, I don't know how much it's been working. They brought it up last night on the Ravens game. There was like a touchdown play, and someone was like, well, why didn't they? I think one of the commentators or something was like, hey, why didn't they slow that down to get a better look at it? And he's like, well, the sky judge already buzzed it in that it was good. And I'm like, that's all you need. Perfect. I don't need a 5-minute explanation on why that was a touchdown or why the guy's knee was down. Just say like, hey, they buzzed it in, his knee was down. Here's our replay while Michigan gets the offense back out there or whatever they did. I think they might have kicked a field goal. I can't remember. But I was like, why is Scott Frost having to tell the refs like what to review and using the big board to do it? Michigan had one of those too where, it was a spot. So they picked up the flag. Nebraska was going for it on like third or fourth down or something. And they were like 2 yards short of the first down. Well, or maybe Michigan had the ball. I think Michigan was going for the first down. And so they thought that there was an illegal motion or something, so they threw the flag. When they reviewed it, or they picked up the flag, but then the guy picked up the ball and walked it back to the original line of scrimmage. Like they just forgot that the running back ran 3 yards. And they're like, fourth down. And Harbaugh's like, what the hell are you doing? Like you just said there was no penalty. Why did our running back not get the ball? So then he said he wants to challenge it, and you could see it on the thing, like, hey, I want to challenge the spot. And the guy blows the whistle and was like, what? He's like, I want to challenge the spot. He said, no, we picked the penalty up. And Harbaugh's like, no, I want to challenge the spot. And he said, Coach Harbaugh wants a timeout. And then he like looked like he was going to punch him in the head. I was like, oh my gosh, we're getting the old Harbaugh back where he's going to get kicked out of the game here. And then he's sitting there explaining to the guy that he wanted them to review the spot because he moved the ball back. And I'm like, there's how many refs out there? Did they not see that the Michigan guy get 3 yards? And then they reviewed it. They're like, oh yeah, he was at the 42. I don't know what we're doing. So get a sky judge. That's the only thing I'm bringing it up. And I don't want it to seem like I was complaining about Michigan's side. But having to see both coaches explain it to the refs, and then the commentators clearly able to read lips, and the ref just standing there like, what do you mean? What do you mean his knee was down? What do you mean we moved the ball back 3 yards? It reminds me of the Penn State one where they got the third down punt. And Franklin's like, this is the best? These are the best crews you're putting on TV? Like, why would anyone watch this? If you weren't a fan of either team, or you didn't hate Harbaugh and wanted to see him lose to Nebraska, that's what it would be. But there's a big judgment day in the Big Ten. On October 30th, I think, you're going to have Michigan versus Michigan State, potentially 2 undefeated teams. Michigan plays Northwestern at home. Michigan State has to play Indiana. I don't know if it's home or away. They could both be 7-0. That would be unreal of a matchup. That's also the same day as Penn State, Ohio State, and Iowa, Wisconsin. So, I mean, I'm guessing the Big Ten is going to get game day that day. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. It really depends on what Penn State does, and with Sean Clifford being out, I don't know. Did they ever say what his injury was? Did you see?
No, they said, nope, he's out.
Because they're trying to see. I looked to see if he would be back for Ohio State at least, but I didn't see a timetable. And that was one of the things I brought up about James Franklin seeming salty. He's like, oh, well, of course our quarterback didn't look good. He didn't practice all week. We didn't expect to play him. It's like, yeah, right. I mean, that's my take on what he said. I forget. He gave coach speak. But that's basically what he said. And I'm like, if you're that quarterback, you played bad. You don't need coach trashing you either. Because, like, how's that going to make you any better for next week?
It doesn't matter when you're going to USC.
Well, maybe that's right. I don't know. They play Illinois, I think. So they should win. Remember, I thought Illinois looked good that first week. Boy, was I wrong. Now Nebraska, they have to hate. Like, Scott Frost has to just look back at that game and say, what was I doing? He has to make a bowl game, I would think. Do you think he gets fired this year?
I don't know.
They went 4-8, 5-7, 3-5, and now they're 3-4. They still have to play. They don't have an easy schedule. So they played 3 ranked teams. They lost to all of them. The 4th loss was that bad Illinois loss because Illinois turns out to not be that good. First game of the season, everyone thought Illinois might be legit contenders, even me, but wrong. You have to go to Minnesota, play Purdue at home. So they have to win both of those to get bowl eligible, or they have to beat Ohio State at home, which I don't think will ever happen, at Wisconsin, or at home against Iowa, which a lot of people think that they'll be able to catch Iowa if Iowa's undefeated looking ahead to the Big Ten championship. But at that point, if you don't win, I mean, I guess you could beat Minnesota or Purdue and use that Iowa game to get bowl eligible. Does that save you? They've been looking better, but like they still have the bonehead plays. Like, yeah. I mean, their quarterback, he was running the ball and he was moving the pile when he fumbled against Michigan. I don't know if you saw the play. And he tried to say after the game that he was standing up and his progress was stopped. His progress was not stopped. If anything, if they would have blew it dead and, like, let's say he would have broke out because he was basically just running through a Michigan lineman and that was it. The safety came in and stripped him. If the safety doesn't get that strip and misses and he's able to run past him, he could have ran for a touchdown. And so, like, I think the ref, if you blow the whistle, because the ball was out a good bit before they blew the whistle. I guess they never blew the whistle on the play because he picked it up and returned it a bit. But I just don't see how there was any other way around that for the fumble. Like, you're fighting for yards. You either have to get down or, like I said, they're not going to blow the whistle if it looks like you could break out of that and run for a touchdown because the fans would be throwing stuff on the field. So, I don't know. Just a couple of bad breaks. Punt return, that interception, then the fumble. They're losing it every way they can, Matt. They're like, wonder how we'll lose next week. Block field goal? But yeah, that's my Big Ten rundown. Anything you got on it? What do you think about Penn State's chances now? They have to be done. Well,
right? I almost think like of making the playoff.
Winning the Big Ten, because now they have the extra loss. So with 3 teams that are undefeated, or I guess in the Big Ten, I'm thinking Ohio State too, they would each have to drop another game. So even if they do a round robin scenario, Penn State's going to have that second loss. Like, let's say, we'll just ignore Michigan State for right now, but let's say Michigan beats Penn State, but Penn State beats them and loses to Ohio State or whatever that round robin scenario would be. The Penn State, they're like immediately out. And then it goes to the head-to-head between Michigan and Ohio State or Michigan State and Ohio State, whatever the third team would be. So they almost have to win out at this point. They can't suffer another loss and their quarterback's injured. So you have to get him back in 2 weeks, 3 weeks before that Ohio State game.
Well, I almost think, like, for as many teams as you're saying are ranked within the top 10, I think you're going to start to see over the next couple weeks they're looking forward to the next matchup, and you're going to see some of them slot. Like, you're going to have a couple losses just because of the nature of the way some of those games go.
You think Michigan's going to lose to Northwestern is what you're saying?
That would be a very Jim Harbaugh thing to do. No,
losing to Nebraska would have been the Harbaugh thing to do. Even the quarterback, Cade McNamara, came out in his post-game interview and said, hey, in the past we would have lost that game. And then he kind of caught himself, and I was like, at least you're saying what everyone was thinking, buddy. Because he threw the pick. And that's what I like about him, because everyone's been saying, like, oh, he's a gunslinger, he's going to come out and throw it again. But we haven't really seen it, because they've just been able to run all over everybody. And so he threw the pick, and I'm like, oh, great, here we go. It's going to be a BYU-type meltdown, where BYU, they had so many turnovers in that game. I don't know if you watched that. I think it was on Saturday. So I had both games up. But I was pulling for BYU, because a lot of people don't realize they played half a Pac-12 schedule. They did a Notre Dame with the Pac-12. So BYU played Arizona, beat them. Utah beat them. They're the only loss that Arizona State has. And then they play Boise State. All they have to do is win. And then they're set up for the second half of their schedule, which included Baylor, Washington State, Virginia, and USC. If they would have been undefeated, they would have jumped Cincinnati for the playoff spot. They would have got the Pac-12 spot. You can't look at that and say, well, Cincinnati beat Notre Dame. And then BYU's like, yeah, but we beat 5 Pac-12 teams. And 2 of them are ranked right now. I don't know if Utah's still ranked, but Arizona State definitely still ranked. So that was the one where you watch the turnovers and you're like, oh, man, what are you doing? Put the game together. Michigan did that. That was old Michigan, where you're like, you're so close. What are you doing? You're undefeated. You could be making the playoffs. Instead, you're just turning the ball over a bunch of times, running up the middle. I saw their board. It looked like the Michigan board. 13 posts about, why is coach running up the middle? Fire him. why are we throwing a quarterback out there that's obviously just throwing interceptions? I was like, I feel the pain, buddy. I feel the pain. At least in the Big 12, you can redeem yourself. You have a few more years now. You're getting called up to the bigs, but I don't know. You're probably right. That's why, like, if I'm Michigan State, you're looking at the Indiana game. Indiana was supposed to be good. Indiana's another team too, which we really don't know much about them. They've lost. I think all their losses are to ranked teams too. Yeah, they lost to Iowa, Cincinnati, and Penn State. So are they good? I don't know. They were supposed to be good. Could they be bad? Yeah. Could they still be good? We don't know. They play Michigan State, and then of course they have Ohio State and Michigan on the schedule too. But that would be the game this week that I think, of the 4 teams that we talked about, Michigan State definitely has the hardest game that could lead to an upset. So we'll see if you're right. But going into the ACC now, what the hell, Wake Forest? You didn't have room for Kenneth Walker. You had to give him to Michigan State. He's like leading and rushing everywhere. I was like, are you kidding me? You couldn't just keep him for one more year? You guys are undefeated. You couldn't use another running back that's awesome? Because I looked at his stats, because I'm like, oh, this guy, I mean, he's too good. Why is Wake Forest getting rid of him? He was like the leading rusher in the ACC, and I'm like, all right, you can't just push him out. He couldn't just be leaving for playing time. So I don't know why he ended up leaving. But getting into Florida State stuff, Michigan State has, well, let's see here. I'm going to try to do some counting in my head as I talk. They have basically 17 transfers, if I counted right. So more than 15 of their class was transfers, Matt. That's how they turned a 2-5 team to an undefeated team.
I can believe that.
And I don't think this is going to be the first time, or I mean, the last time that this happens. They pulled guys from Auburn, Wake Forest, as I mentioned, Florida, Michigan, Minnesota, Purdue, Tennessee, Alabama. That's just ones that I picked out. Like, they're not pulling transfers from, I mean, I guess they have a guy from Lincoln. He's a punter. Is that Lincoln, Nebraska? I don't even know what school that would be.
Yeah, it would be Nebraska.
Lincoln Blue Tigers, they're Division II. So they're even getting punters from Division II, and a guy from North Greenville, which is what, a JUCO? Or no, they're Division II, South Conference. So, but they're pulling big name guys, and some of these other schools like Alabama that are recruiting 4 and 5-star guys. Of course, they're going to be looking to transfer after a while, because they're not going to get playing time in their third year. Not everyone's going to sit there and say, you know what, maybe I'll get my time again. Look at Spencer Rattler. You think he transfers?
Yeah.
They talked about it during the game. They're like, hey, where do you think he transfers to? And I also saw this stupid hit piece where it was like, well, perfect Steelers luck when they're going to get a number one draft pick because they're so bad. The number one drafting quarterback now isn't even going to be good. Spencer Rattler. And I'm like, what kind of article is this? Like, the Steelers don't have to draft a quarterback, and they're not even going to get the number one pick. The Jaguars can't even get a win or look anywhere close to a competent organization. Like, and then, like, if anything, that's good. If you think Spencer Rattler's that good, the Steelers can still get him. They can even get him at a discount now because he's been playing so bad. So the article didn't make sense at all. And I'm like, what kind of Pittsburgh media circus is this? But we'll see. Michigan State was picked to finish 7th, Matt, in the media poll behind Rutgers and Maryland. So let that sink in. So whenever you have a little bit of, you're down on Florida State and you're like, we're never going to be back. Just think, you could have a season like Michigan State, opened up and get a bunch of transfers.
Well, I feel like they are getting back to where it was actually fun to watch the game this week.
I didn't have the ESPN 8, so I didn't get to see that one.
Shut up, Dick. It was on the main ESPN. It was on ESPN 1 for a change. It was like reliving the days of yore when we were winning recent national championships in the college football era.
Couldn't even make it on the ABC back then either.
Hey, at least you don't have to watch our last national championship on ESPN Classic.
Pretty soon. I saw what was the other article I saw? It was about coaches. It was a Coach O, how LSU shouldn't fire him because he's going to turn into a coach that really needed a star quarterback to help him win. And they threw Jimbo in that with Gene Chizik, and they had Jim Tressel in there. I'm like, who wrote this article? Jim Tressel he didn't just win with a quarterback. If anything, it was Maurice Claret. And Craig Krenzel was more like a game manager. And then they said coaches that flamed out immediately. I was like, Tressel was there for like 6 or 7 more years before he had that Tattoo Gate thing. Same with like Jimbo. He's still successful. He just beat number 1 Alabama. Why'd you write this? Delete this article. That's what I should have posted in my comment. Delete this. This is bad. Did you not just see Jimbo beat Alabama? I know they had a couple of bad games, but give me a break. So you're getting there. Jimbo was like, be like, that's my Alabama moment when he beat one with LSU.
But the two things that stood out to me was that first off, the wide receivers were actually making plays. And like in years past, the recruiting for the receivers was not very good. Like they weren't producing anything even remotely close to NFL talent. Like, and so they were losing all these wide receivers that then you couldn't complete a pass. You're always in like 3rd and 9, and because the offensive line wasn't blocking, it was like they were getting themselves, like we talked about with my high school team. You get yourself into like a 3rd and 3, 3rd and 2, and now you have a lot of options in the playbook as far as what you can run to help your team out. And it was like they got ahead, they were able to take some shots, and they were scoring points. Like it was an enjoyable game across the board to watch.
Well,
and go ahead.
I was just going to ask, so with that newfound confidence, do you think they get bowl eligible? Because they have a pretty tough schedule to close out the year.
It depends which team shows up. I mean, like the one stat, and I can't remember where I saw this, but they said like this was the first time, and I know I'm going to butcher this, but it was like the first time in a really long time that there wasn't, I don't know if it was a personal foul penalty or like some kind of penalty that they lost yardage on.
I only ask because the Clemson game is big. Do you think that they have a chance to upset Clemson? Because that's basically a program builder. That's what I've been mentioned with Scott Frost. Scott Frost has had his chance. He had a chance with Michigan State in a ranked win. He had a chance with Oklahoma, with Michigan. Couldn't get it done. I mean, Florida State was close with Notre Dame at the beginning of the year. Do you think Clemson could be that win?
I think they could. I mean, they have one of the strongest running back groups in the country, I think, right now. between Jay-Sean and Tayshaun, that they were running the ball a lot better. I think if you don't commit the turnovers and penalties that have plagued them over the last couple of years, I think they have a shot.
I hope so, because I think if Clemson gets one more loss before they have to play Wake, if Wake's able to get through, they play Duke, UNC, and then NC State. If NC State can somehow get through that schedule that they have, which I think is a little bit tougher, Wake, all they have to do is just, I mean, if Clemson gets another loss by that time, they're pretty much in. NC State does have the tiebreaker. They're undefeated, but they only played one conference game already. So that's why their schedule's tougher. Wake has already played 4. They're halfway home. Was it 7-game schedule, 8-game schedule? What do they play? Because one of these might not even count for the conference, right? I don't know. Now I'm getting confused as hell. You're supposed to be the ACC guy. You're supposed to fill me in here. 7. Yes, I guess NC State plays 8 games. So does Boston College not count as a conference game for Wake? That would be the most Wake thing possible. Because if I'm reading this right, I think that might be the case. No, they have to play each other, right? Which game wouldn't count? Maybe Duke doesn't count.
I don't know, but I did laugh that Mac Brown still has not been able to beat Florida State.
I saw that.
He had to take a break and then came back and was still just like, nope, guess I can't beat him.
Hey, maybe Jim Harbaugh should do that. He should go to Ohio State and lose every year. Like, help us even out. Or maybe they can hire Brady Hoke or something. Brady Hoke's been doing pretty good at, he's back at San Diego State or wherever he was. They've been pretty good. So maybe he can do that same thing. Just get up there. Yeah, is that his team? They're 5-0 and ranked. I'm going to look that up because that's a slap in your face, isn't it? Because that's I'm going to look it up because that's big. Brady Hoke is ranked before Florida State. Yeah, he is there. Oh, man.
Well, we said that there
has to be tough to hear, Matt.
No, we knew that this was going to be another part of the rebuild. We're trusting the process.
He was 4-4 last year. This is year 2. You could have hired Brady Hoke and been ranked, Matt. He's 5-0. He turned it around. He knows how to win. You could arguably say that he played Ohio State closer than Harbaugh has. I don't even know if that's an argument. Harbaugh's into some pretty big blowouts. I did wonder, there was a couple plays where the defense just looked out of sorts. And I was like, oh my gosh, is this back to the Don Brown defense where they just blow this game open with wide open touchdowns? But then the one play, they had 5 guys in the backfield, and then they told Harbaugh they couldn't review it. And I was like, that should be reviewable, right? If you have an illegal formation, you get a touchdown. Why can't you review that? you review this other bullshit. But that's back to complaining about the refs. It didn't end up not mattering. But I can't believe Brady Hoke is there. Let's get into, so I had one other topic here before we finish out the show. Best touchdown celebration. Because a few years ago, Peoples-Jones, now the wide receiver, which I think he was the leading wide receiver for the Browns over the weekend.
He was.
He did. Do you have him on your fantasy team?
I don't, but watching him, I was surprised that he didn't pull a hamstring muscle or.
Has he been hurt that much?
I feel like he is always injured.
I don't know. I just know that he has one of the best celebrations in recent memory where he did the Paul Bunyan Trophy after he scored against Michigan State to beat them. Well, Blake Corum, running back for Michigan, ran into the end zone after his touchdown and ate corn. Did you watch the video I sent you?
No.
Look at that. It's like a tweet. He did a fake eating corn. That's celebration number 1. Celebration number 2 goes back to Kenneth Walker, Michigan State running back, who broke out for a 94-yard touchdown run. On the 20-yard line, he shook the wide receiver's hand. They did a handshake, Matt.
I did see that one. That was bad.
So what do you think is the better celebration?
I think the handshake running down the field is definitely more disrespectful. I would have died though. They go to shake hands and just like fall down, trip over each other.
So the way everyone made it sound was that it was like a long handshake. It was more like a high five. I think they did get one shake in. So I did like that disrespect, but I got to say I have a soft spot for whenever you're disrespecting the other team's mascot. And so I like the eating corn. I'm surprised no one else has ever done it. Because, like, I remember watching an Iowa Bowl game where they sacked the Florida quarterback and he got up and did the Gator Chomp. And I thought that was funny. I'm like, do the Gator Chomp right in his face. This year, it would have been a 15-yarder. They would have been like, oh, my God. I forget what year was that. That was like 2000-something Iowa played Florida in one of the bowl games. That might have even been Chris Leak. I wonder if Urban Meyer was there. But, they had a sack, and it was like he got up and did the Gator Chomp just right in his face. And now Michigan got a unsportsmanlike conduct because the cornerback broke up a play, or I guess our safety, Dax Hill, and stood up and looked at the guy. Now, of course, he was like looking down on him disrespectfully, but not the same as doing the Gator Chomp. But they let the corn eating go. So I don't even know how you can fake eating corn. Even the announcer was like, I think he was eating corn there. And it was like,
I think he's eating corn.
Because they were like baffled as to what's he doing? Why is he doing that hand motion? So I got to say, I love it. And I think you kind of planned it out. The handshake one, I guess that's more spur of the moment. That's like Desmond's Heisman. I mean, I guess he could have planned it out, but like, you don't know you're going to return a punt for a touchdown. You don't know you're going to run a 94-yard, but I think normally you can be like, all right, I'm going to plan this out. If I score, I'm going to eat corn. And the teammates are probably like, what the hell are you talking about eating corn? He's like, just wait. Because I've done some celebrations like that. I did a Top Gun once. We scored a touchdown in high school. So like, I know how you can do some of those. And now I'm looking at these ones. I'm like, dude, I was like amateur hour. I should have been eating corn. Doing a Paul Bunyan trophy. So that's going to be my new, I think I'm going to make this our new segment. Looking out for touchdown celebrations. Remember the guy did the dog peeing on the whatever? It cost him the game.
And the coach's job.
Yeah, these are legendary celebrations, Matt. I think they're on that level. I'd put the handshake, the dog, the corn, the Paul Bunyan trophy, up there with the Lambeau Leap. Let's just throw that out there. I'm trying to think of what other ones. T.O. with the Sharpie. So this is going to be my new thing. I'm going to be looking out for great touchdown celebrations for the show. So if you have some, send them to me so I can talk about it. But I don't know. What other mascots can you make fun of? Like doing the tomahawk chop, not that big of a deal. But the eating corn one, that's pretty good. That would also work for Iowa. They wouldn't really get it. The announcer would really not get it if someone did it against Iowa, though. Let's see. Anything else you have for college football?
No.
I know we're going long. The one thing I had, they were talking about, did you see the SEC chant? I guess this could be my final bell.
No.
Texas and Oklahoma have been doing the SEC chant all the time now. I think I heard it during the Cowboys game. And I'm like, what the hell? Like, are you kidding me? This is like going to be the big new thing. But along with that, was it Conference USA and the AAC, they were trying to see if they could just switch teams or something to like make their conferences make more sense. Did you see that story?
No.
That seems like such a desperation move where you're like, hey, we just lost a bunch of our teams. Do you mind giving us some? Like, please, some teams over here. That's like whenever the AAC, I think that same conference, they like told the Big 12, like, hey, they're leaving you guys. Just come on over. Like, like a bunch of divorced kids are like, yeah, your parents just left. Come on. Come over to our house. Like, it's not good over here. I want to stay in my own house. We can raise ourselves. And that's what they did. They added a couple other teams. And they took them right from that house. They're like, hey, we're going to take your kids. Your kids can come on over. Give me Cincinnati and your face. So I wonder what will happen. But like with the ACC now, people are like, what's the conference championship going to look like? What if it's Wake and Pitt? Because Pitt right now is leading that, and I was looking at the Pitt thing. I feel like I haven't talked about Pitt enough, and probably lost some listeners because of it. Probably not. Does Pitt even have any fans? I try to watch their games, and there's not a lot of people there, Matt. But they have the same thing as NC State, where they're undefeated right now, but they only played one game. They have to beat Virginia Tech this week. Do you think they get it done?
I'm gonna say yes, because we're gonna go to the ACC championship.
Because they also play Clemson at home, and Pitt has been known to beat them. So Pitt, boom, 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 they could get in for a classic game against Wake Forest, and the fans will go wild, all 12 of them. They'll say, hey, we decided to we're not going to play in Charlotte anymore. We're just going to play on Wake's campus because they're undefeated. And we're going to have to tarp some of the seats anyway. I'd be like, classic ACC. But it would be even funnier is if they're just like, hey, Notre Dame, you guys want to play this week? Because how do you get Notre Dame to join other than, hey, did you see our conference championship game? That could have been you. That could have been you. Because I think that's the one thing. Because people are talking about the Big Ten. Hey, maybe you should move some of the teams. But I was looking at it. Like, who do you really move? Do you move... The most balanced is like, you have to either move Michigan or Michigan State to the west. But then, like, who do you move to the east? Because if you take Michigan out, then like you can't put Wisconsin back in the East because then that's just dumb. Then you're back where you were. You have to kind of put like Purdue in there, maybe, right? And then like, is that enough? Does like giving Ohio State, Purdue, Indiana, Maryland, and Rutgers, like, is that fair? Because if you take Michigan out of there and then they get rid of like the permanent crossover against Ohio State, I mean, I guess they would play it. If they did do that, I would want them to move the game into October, early October, and kind of do like a Texas-Oklahoma thing, saying like, look, you guys are separated now, and you're the permanent crossover game, and you're going to play earlier because if there's a rematch in the championship game, then it happens. Because like before, they didn't do that, and Michigan had some down years, and then they still had to play Ohio State at the end of the year, and they had no chance to get into the playoffs because of the way the schedule worked. But I don't even know if you can do that. You almost have to have the pods make the best idea. I wonder what the SEC does. So that's my last thing. Just speculating. After the AAC tried to get desperate, do they even get blown up? I don't even know who would be left because they lose Houston, Cincinnati, and UCF. So SMU right now is undefeated, though, and they're ranked. So it would be SMU and then a bunch of leftovers, I guess.
Yeah.
Just trying to take some other schools from other conferences. It makes no sense to me. They should have just added App State. I guess, well, maybe App doesn't want to go. Them and Coastal Carolina have a good thing going. They're in the same division, though. So Coastal's undefeated still, too. I hope there's some chaos this year. I doubt it. You have anything for the final bell?
No, I do not.
All right, well, thanks for listening. We had the crazy news this week. Gruden getting fired. JuJu out. So hopefully Steelers keep winning, and there'll be some more stuff. Hockey's back. I'm waiting to see how many games are going to actually be on ESPN Plus, because that's going to be a big selling point if that can happen. So Pens were off to a good start. They probably blew it by the time the show finished. But thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week.